What's up guys, my name is Moo. I am a college student who loves reading and I'm here to share that love with all of you. So I just filmed my explanation video of my Read Around the World Challenge, the bucket list item. I have to read one book from every country around the world in my lifetime. It is a challenging feat with 186 countries and territories included, but it is a challenge that I am excited to take on and share with all of you as I do so. If you have not seen my explanation video of the Read Around the World Challenge, I implore you to check it out up above. But I think we are just going to jump into it. This is going to be a lot more chill of a video where you are just going to listen to my voice as I read you the summaries for each book. However, I hope that you will stick around. If you liked this video, please leave a like. I put so much time and effort into this video just to make it seem as effortless as it hopefully is coming to you guys, and it would really mean a lot to me if you gave it a like, you pushed it out into the algorithm, you left some comments about what book sounded most interesting to you, or if you have a book from your country that is your favorite. Truly, commenting anything will help me and the algorithm. And if you like this content that you are seeing, if you would like to see more, because I will be doing one of these videos for every continent, as well as plenty other book related videos, I do hope you will subscribe. I upload every other Thursday and I would absolutely love to have you around. So without much more fanfare, let us start. I would like to say up front that I'm going to try my best to pronounce all the names as well as I can, but there's a lot of different names from a lot of different cultures in this list, so I will try my best, but we will see how it goes. Unless stated otherwise, all of these summaries are taken from Goodreads, but once I actually get my hands on the books, we may find a different summary for those, so we'll just see how it goes from there. This is a very flexible process. The books that I've chosen are books that I'm pretty confident about, but who knows, if I find one that I like even better, perhaps that'll become the book that I choose. From then on, we'll just see how it goes. So without further ado, let's truly get into it. In Europe, not counting any of the non-fiction, the Holocaust memoirs, any of that sort of thing, I have only read from 2 countries. I only own books, again, not including the non-fiction books. I have only read 2 of them. That's embarrassing to me personally, so that is okay. I hopefully have a very long life ahead of me to correct these mistakes, but now I have a list, now I have a direction going forward. Let's go. This is going to be a long one where you're just going to hear my voice. This might be a good video to put in the background while you do some chores or some homework or any sort of thing like that. So grab a snack, get comfortable, or get ready to do what you need to do, and let's get into these summaries. Starting with Albania is Misinterpretation by Lydia Tsonga. And this book is literary fiction. In present-day New York City, an Albanian interpreter reluctantly agrees to work with Alfred, a Kosovar torture survivor, during his therapy sessions. Despite her husband's cautions, she soon becomes entangled in her clients. Alfred's nightmares stir up her unburied memories, and an impulsive attempt to help a Kurdish poet leads to a risky encounter and reckless plan. As ill-fated decisions stack up, jeopardizing the nameless narrator's marriage and mental health, she takes a spontaneous trip to reunite with her mother in Albania, where her life in the United States is put into stark relief. When she returns to face the consequences of her actions, she must question what is real and what is not. Nominative and propulsive, Lydia Tsonga's debut novel Misinterpretation interrogates the darker legacies of family and country and the boundary between compassion and self-preservation. I found in this research a lot of books that focused on immigrants living in the US, and don't get me wrong, their stories are incredibly important and I think their stories should be heard. However, books set in places like New York, LA, Chicago usually don't interest me, and through this journey I also want to decentralize the US and the UK and the Western world as a whole. So I mostly stayed away from books like that, but this book just seemed so compelling that I had to add it to this list. Next is Andorra, The Teacher of Cheops by Albert Salvado, which is historical fiction. This is the history of the time of Pharaoh Snefru and Queen Hetepheres, the parents of Cheops, who built the largest and most impressive pyramid of all. It is also the story of the high priest Ramesses Sedon, a slave who became Cheops' teacher, and how the first pyramid came to be built. Sebek-hotep, the great wise man of that time, said, "Everything is written in the stars. Most of us live our lives unaware of it. Some can read the stars and see their destiny, but very few people learn to write in the stars and change their destiny." Ramesses and Sedum learned to write in the stars and tried to change their destinies, but fortune treated them very differently. This is the tale of the confrontation between two men's intelligence, one fighting for power, the other struggling for freedom. Austria is 24 Hours in the Life of a Woman by Stefan Zweig, which is literary fiction. There's a lot of literary fiction on this list, but I think that when it comes to a challenge like this, it makes a lot of sense why. It says, "The less I felt in myself, the more strongly I was drawn to those places where the whirling of life spins most rapidly. So begins an extraordinary day of the life of Mrs. C, recently bereaved and searching for excitement and meaning. Drawn to the bright lights of a casino and the passion of a desperate stranger, she discovers a purpose once again, but at what cost? In this vivid and moving tale of a compassionate woman and her defining experience, Zweig explores the power of intense love, overwhelming loneliness, and regret that can last for a lifetime." From Belarus is Red Crosses by Sasha Filipenko, which is historical fiction and literary fiction. And actually, my sister bought me the book for my birthday, so that's exciting. I can read straight from the summary. One struggles against forgetting, while the other would like nothing better. In a novel full of heart and humanity that tells the story of an unexpected friendship between an old woman and her young neighbor, Sasha Filipenko combines a heartwarming tale of human connection with the history of modern Russia from the Bolshevik Revolution to the present day. Tatiana Alexeyevna is an old woman over 90, rich in lived experience and suffering in the early stages of Alzheimer's. Every day she loses a few more of her irreplaceable memories. Alexander Sasha is a young man whose life has been brutally torn in two. Seeking solace in a new start, he changes apartments, moving to a home across the landing from Tatiana. Little by little, the old woman and the young man forge an unlikely friendship, sharing their joys and sadness, recounting their triumphs and their losses, deciding together that they cannot forget. Quite compelling. From Belgium is The Melting by Liz Spit, which is thriller and mystery. Eva can trace the route to Prim's farm with her eyes closed, even though she has not been to Boven-Mere for many years. There she grew up among the rape fields and dairy farms. There lies also the root of all of their grief. Eva was one of 3 children born in her small Flemish town in 1988. Growing up alongside the boys Lawrence and Pim, Eva sought refuge from her loveless family life in the company of her 2 friends. But with adolescence came a growing awareness of their burgeoning sexuality. Driven by their newly found desires, the children begin a game that will have serious and violent consequences for them all. 13 years after the summer she's tried so long to forget, Eva is returning to her village. Everything fell apart that summer, but this time she'll be prepared. She has a large block of ice in her car boot, and she's ready to settle the score. Part thriller, part coming-of-age novel, Melting is an extraordinary and unsettling debut from Liz Spit, a reckoning with adolescent cruelty and the scars it leaves. Next is Bosnia-Herzegovina, The Bridge of the Drina by Ivo Andrić, which is historical fiction. A vivid depiction of the suffering history has imposed upon the people of Bosnia from the late 16th century to the beginning of World War I. The Bridge on the Drina earned Ivo Andrić the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1961. A great stone bridge built 3 centuries ago in the heart of the Balkans by a Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire dominates the setting of Andrić's stunning novel. Spanning generations, nationalities, and creeds, the bridge stands witness to the countless lives prayed out upon it. Radisav, the workman who tries to hinder its construction and is impaled on its highest point, to the lovely Fatah, who throws herself from its parapet to escape a loveless marriage, to Milan, the gambler who risks everything in one last game on the bridge with the devil his opponent, to Fedun, the young soldier who pays for a moment of spring forgetfulness with his life. War finally destroys the span, and with it the last descendant of the family to which the Grand Vizier confined the care of his pious bequest, the bridge. From Bulgaria, 4 Minutes by Natalia Deleva, which is LGBTQ literary fiction. Giving voice to people living on the periphery in post-communist Bulgaria, 4 Minutes centers around Leah, an orphan who suffered daily horrors growing up and now struggles to integrate into society as a gay woman. She confronts her trauma by trying to volunteer at the orphanage and to adopt a young girl, a choice that is frustrated over and over by bureaucracy and the pervasive stigma against gay women. In addition to Leah's narrative, the novel contains 9 other standalone character studies of other frequently ignored voices. These sections are each meant to be read in approximately 4 minutes, a nod to a social experiment that put forth the hypothesis that it only takes 4 minutes of looking someone in the eye and listening to them in order to accept and empathize with them. A meticulously crafted novel, 4 Minutes takes a difficult, uncompromising look at modern life in Eastern Europe. Like, that sounds so fantastic. It seems like a difficult read, but I think that it will bring a lot of very good insight to a different part of the world around me. From Croatia is Love Novel by Ivana Sakio, which is literary fiction. This book is also the winner of the HKW International Literary Prize. Love in Late Capitalism. Ivana Sakio takes us into a war between kitchen and bedroom. He, an unemployed Dante scholar, is trying to change the world and write a novel. She, a possible actress, has given up her safe job at the theater to care for their child. He is delirious, she is on edge. With the rent overdue and violence looming on all sides, the two of them circle one another in a dizzying dance towards the abyss. From Czech Republic is The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera, which is romance and literary fiction. In The Unbearable Lightness of Being, Milan Kundera tells us the story of a young woman in love with a man torn between his love for her and his incorrigible womanizing and one of his mistresses and her humbling, faithful lover. This magnificent novel juxtaposes geographically distant places, brilliant and playful reflections, in a variety of styles to take its place as perhaps the major achievement of one of the world's truly great writers. For Denmark is According to the Law, 4 Accounts of Mankind by Solveig Ball, which is short stories and fiction. You will see a lot more short stories on this list. I love short story collections. Nicholas S., a biochemist in Quebec, is close to bringing the human race to solving the great enigma of man's upright posture. As the story opens, he is on the way to collect the corpse of a young woman who has died from hypothermia and bequeathed her body to scientific research. What Tanya L. wants is to discover the nature of pain. She is conscious of inflicting pain on others. Men crumple and drop dead in the street on the sight of her, and she can come to terms with her power only by discovering exactly what pain is made of. There is no doubt that pain exists, but who knows what it is? Her quest leads her first to Barcelona. Rinji, a Danish mathematician, has one consuming to take up the absolute minimum of space that is possible for any one human to take up on the map of humanity. How close will he come to turning himself into a non-entity, a pane of glass, a passing breeze, while still inhabiting his body? One day in a cafe in Passau, his eyes fall on a young woman in a black dress. Alette V is an artist in Quebec who specializes in portrait busts, capturing people's likenesses in plaster, or in bronze. She likes inert matter more than she likes mankind. Indeed, her concern is with her own ultimate passing from human being to thing, on the same scale of an inanimate object as a chair, or a corpse. What these 4 short tales have in common is that they are about people obsessively dedicated to their own particular search, people on the verge of a great discovery about the nature of being, and the basis of their searches is a total rejection of all preconceptions, which enables them to see the ordinary and everyday from a total novel angle. And according to the law, Solveig Ball reveals an unsettling vision and a startlingly original talent. Like, if it weren't for this challenge, I would have never heard of a book this fantastic. Next from Estonia is Baltic Bells, the Daedalus Book of Estonian Women's Literature by Elmari Talevi, which is classics, literary fiction, and anthology. This anthology presents readers with a broad selection of fiction written between the late 19th century and today. The collection opens with the early realist Elizabeth Asp, who described both village life and urban fear during the final decades of the 19th century. Early 20th century works by female writers often discuss the young creative individuals' encounters in the transformed urbanized world, some of the most outstanding examples of which are the great Betty Alver. Estonian writing bore the unmistakable signs of Soviet censorship. Nevertheless, Vivi Luke's momentous novel The Seventh Spring of Peace managed to avoid suppression, and the wonderfully unique Asta Poldme seized her opportunity to write. Very strong authors such as Eva Park, Maria Kangro, and Maimu Berg flourished with the return of freedom of expression in the late 20th century and continue to do so today. They represent the best of Estonian short story writing, handling social topics very sharply and suggestively and scrutinizing the country's soul in a highly personal manner. Finland is Fair Play by Tove Jansson, which is LGBTQ and literary fiction. It is also the winner of the 2009 Bernard Shaw Prize for Translation. Fair Play is the type of love story that is rarely told, a revelatory depiction of contentment, hard-won and exhilarating. Marie is a writer and Jana is an artist, and they live at opposite ends of a big apartment building. Their studio is connected by a long attic passageway. They have argued, worked, and laughed together for decades, yet they've never really stopped taking each other by surprise. Fair Play shows us Mari and Jonah's intertwined lives as they watch Fassbinder films and westerns, critique each other's work, spend time on a solitary island, recognizable to the readers of Jansson's The Summer Book, travel through the American Southwest, and turn their life into nothing less than art. For France, I have chosen My Husband by Maud Ventura. I believe Jeff Edwards also did. There was very few that I ended up taking from him. I think we have different tastes, and that's okay. It just meant that I had to research a lot on my own, which I had a really good time doing. But this book is the winner of France's first novel prize in 2021. In this suspenseful and darkly funny debut novel, a sophisticated French woman spends her life obsessing over her perfect husband. But can their marriage survive her passionate love? At 40 years old, she has an enviable life, a successful career, stunning looks, a beautiful house in the suburbs, 2 healthy children, and most importantly, an ideal husband. After 15 years together, she is still besotted with him, but she's never quite sure that her passion is reciprocated. After all, would a truly infatuated man ever let go of his wife's hand when they're sitting on the couch together? Determined to keep their relationship perfect, she meticulously prepares for every encounter they have, always taking care to make her actions seem effortless. She watches him attentively, charting every mistake and punishing him accordingly to help him improve. And she tests him, setting traps to make sure that he still loves her just as much as he did when they first met. Until one day, she realizes she may have gone too far. For Germany, one of my favorite books of all time is All Quiet on the Western Front. If you want to see a more in-depth video, I have it. There's no summary on this version of the book, so instead I will read you what he said in the opening because it is so powerful no matter how many times I read it. This book is to be neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all an adventure, for death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped its shells, were destroyed by the war. This is a book about the harsh realities of World War I as a German soldier, and if you are interested in it at all, I highly recommend. Once again, view my video. From Greece is Daughter by Pavlos Matisses, and it is historical fiction. During the German occupation, a young mother takes an Italian lover while her husband is away fighting. With victory, the villagers take their terrible revenge. This is the mother's story as told by her daughter, Rauru, along with her own life story. Greece was really interesting because I think that plenty of Americans are quite obsessed with Greek and Roman mythology, but I actively tried to stray away from that so I could learn about Greece beyond just the mythology. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with just reading Greek mythology. Of course there isn't. But that was just a goal that I personally had for myself. So that is why I chose the book that I did. I included Greenland, but I could not find a book from Greenland that I was interested in. So unfortunately, I will skip that one for now. If you have any good recommendations, please leave them below. From Hungary is Abigail by Magda Stasbo, which is historical fiction. Abigail, the story of a headstrong teenager growing up during World War II, is the most beloved of Magda Stasbo's books in her native Hungary. Gina is the only child of a general, a widower who has long been happy to spoil his bright and willful daughter. Gina is devastated when the general tells her that he must go away on a mission and that he will be sending her to a boarding school in the country. She is even more aghast at the grim religious institution to which she soon finds herself consigned. She fights with her fellow students, she rebels against her teachers, finds herself completely ostracized, and runs away. Caught and brought back, there is nothing for Gina to do except entrust her fate to the legendary Abigail, as the classical statue of a woman with an urn that stands on the school's grounds has come to be called. If you're in trouble, it said, leave a message with Abigail and help will be on the way. And for Gina, who is in much deeper trouble than she could possibly suspect, a life-changing adventure is only beginning. From Iceland is Angels of the Universe by Einar Mar Gudmundsson. This is contemporary fiction. Set against the bleak landscape of Iceland, a story of madness unfolds as Paul describes growing up in a working-class family and his frequent retreat into his own fantasy world, which eventually leads him to Klepp, a psychiatric hospital. Now, Ireland is Do You Remember Your Man by Bobby Arne. This is one of the few non-fiction books. It is history, biography, and memoir, but once again it is telling stories about interesting people from Ireland. So I thought to include it as it would be pretty similar, I believe, to a lot of the fictional short stories that we see from other cultures. The summary of this one is from lovable oddballs and quirky miscreants to out-and-out chancers and the certifiably insane, the streets of Dublin have been filled with an eclectic cast of characters down through the years. Aided by comic illustrations from Ruan Van Villet, Bobby Arne relates the stories of over 100 of the city's most eccentric inhabitants, the likes of Bang Bang and Harry Yank, Shellshock Joe, and Endymion. The resulting anecdotes are often hilarious and other times tragic, but always fascinating, providing an insight to the people who have passed into Dublin folklore. See, so it's kind of like folklore. From Italy is The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, which is thriller, romance, and classics. The year is 1327. Franciscans in a wealthy Italian abbey are suspected of heresy, and Brother William of Baskerville arrives to investigate. When his delicate mission is suddenly overshadowed by 7 bizarre deaths, Brother William turns to the logic of Aristotle, the theology of Aquinas, and the empirical insights of Roger Bacon to find the killer. He collects evidence, deciphers secret symbols and coded manuscripts, and digs into the eerie labyrinth of the abbey, where the most interesting things happen at night, armed with a wry sense of humor and ferocious curiosity. From Kosovo is Bola, a novel by Pajtim Stavoki, which is LGBTQ and literary fiction. From the author of National Book Award finalist Crossing comes an unlikely love story in Kosovo with unpredictable consequences that reverberate through a young man's life, a dazzling tale of fury, tenderness, longing, and lust. April 1995. Arsim is a 24-year-old, recently married student at the University of Pristina in Kosovo, keeping his head down to gain a university degree in a time and place deeply hostile to Albanians. In a cafe, he meets a young man named Milos, a Serb. Before the day is out, everything has changed for the both of them, and within a week, 2 milestones erupt in Arsim's married life. His wife announces her first pregnancy, and he begins a life in secret. After these fevered beginnings, Arsim and Milo's unlikely affair is derailed by the outbreak of war, which sends Arsim's fledgling family abroad and Tim and Milo spiraling down a dark path, as depicted through chaotic journal entries. Years later, deported back to Pristina after a spell in prison and now alone and hopeless, Arsene finds himself in a broken reality that makes him completely question his past. What happened to him? To them, exactly? How much can you endure and forgive? Entwined with their story is a recreated legend of a demonic serpent, Bola. It's an unearthly tale that gives Arsene and Milos a language through which to reflect on what they once had. With a luminous prose and a delicate eye, Patiom Stakovsky delivers a relentless novel of desire, destruction, intimacy, and the different fronts of war. In Latvia is High Tide by Inga Abel, which is thriller and literary fiction. Told more or less in reverse chronological order, High Tide is the story of Liva, her dead lover, her imprisoned husband, and the way their youthful decisions dramatically impacted the rest of their lives. Taking place over 3 decades, High Tide functions as a sort of psychological mystery, with the full scope of Liva's personal situation and the relationship between the 3 main characters only becoming clear at the end of the novel. One of Latvia's most notable young writers, Abela is a fresh voice in European fiction. Her prose is direct, evocative, and exceptionally beautiful. The combination of strikingly lush descriptive writing with the precision in which she depicts the minds of her characters elevates this novel from a simple story of a love triangle into a fascinating, philosophical, haunting book. And I don't like love triangles usually, so that says good things. I could not find anything from Liechtenstein. I'm very sorry. If you have any recommendations, put them in the comments below, please. Lithuania is I Must Betray You by Ruda Sepetys, which is YA historical fiction. Romania, 1989. Communist regimes are crumbling across Europe. 17-year-old Christian Florescu dreams of becoming a writer, but Romanians aren't free to dream. They are bound by rules and force. Amidst the tyrannical dictatorship of Nicolae Ceausescu, in a country governed by isolation and fear, Christian is blackmailed by the secret police to become an informer. He's left with only 2 choices: betray everyone and everything he loves, or use his position to creatively undermine the most notoriously evil dictator in Eastern Europe. Christian risks everything to unmask the truth behind the regime, give voice to fellow Romanians, and expose to the world what is happening in his country. He eagerly joins the revolution to fight for change when the time arrives. But what is the cost of freedom? From Luxembourg is The Pleasure of Drowning by Jean Burlesque, which is short stories and folklore. The Pleasure of Drowning is a collection of stories based on legends and fairy tales. Fairy tales have been told hundreds of times and have been around for centuries. They are not just something we tell, but something we live. Jean Burlesque takes us through these familiar paths, tempering the fantastical with a sharp tongue and a satirical vision. Irony and unease go hand in hand in this debut collection by the winner of the Prix d'Encouragement de la Fondation Survey 2019. That sounds like French. I don't speak French. I apologize. From Macedonia, which one of my closest friends is from, is A Spare Life by Lydia Dimkovska, which is literary fiction. Multiple Lydias in this list. My childhood best friend is named Lydia, but I've never seen it written in these 2 ways. Now I'm really scared to read the summary because I actually have a friend from Macedonia who speaks Macedonian. So if you are reading this, America da, and please don't correct me. Zlata and Srebra are 12-year-old twins conjoined at the head. It is 1984 and they live in Skopje, which will one day be the capital of Macedonia, but is currently part of Yugoslavia. A Spare Life tells the story of their childhood, from their only friend Rosa to their neighbor Bogdan, so poor that he one day must eat his pet rabbit. Treated as freaks and outcasts, even by their own family, the twins just want to be normal girls. But after an incident that almost destroys their bond as sisters, they fly to London, determined to be surgically separated. Will this be their liberation, or more tightly ensnare them? At once extraordinary and quotidian, A Spare Life is a chronicle of 2 girls who are among the first generation to come of age under the democracy of Eastern Europe. Written in touching prose by an author who is also a master poet, it is a saga about families, sisterhood, immigration, and the occult influences that shape a life. Funny, poignant, dark, and sharply observed, Zlata and Srebra reveal an existence where even the simplest of actions is unlike any we've ever experienced. With Malta is In the Name of the Father and the Son by Emmanuel Mifsud, which is literary fiction. Back from his father's funeral, the narrator starts reading a diary his father kept during his days as a soldier during the Second World War. The diary is very scant, almost impersonal, but it is exactly this impersonality which pushes the narrator to re-examine the personal relationship he had with his father. The father, who the son only knew as a cripple after he had been injured in a motorcycle accident, had always tried to convince those around him that he was tough enough to withstand all hardship and had to bring his son up in his mold. The narrator revisits his past, as well as his own, to look for cracks in this facade, to find signs of weakness and displays of emotion. This turns out to be an opportunity to also look back at his own upbringing and especially at the way he had been educated to become a man. Episodes from the past are recalled and examined for any light they can shed on the matter. The narrator is not only older, which makes him attach new meanings to old events, but he has also changed in two other ways, which both influence the way he now sees things. He has just himself become a father, and he has become a scholar. He has read things that his working class father would never understand, let alone that they would be used to understand him. Next is Moldova, Set in Stone by Stella Brizanu, which is LGBTQ romance and historical fiction. In medieval Moldova, two women from opposing backgrounds fall in love. But this is a world where women's role is defined by religion and class. To make a life together means defying their families, the law, and the church. The closer they become and the more they refuse the roles assigned to them, the more sacrifices they have to make. While Mira's rebellion puts her life in the gravest danger, Elena must fight to change her legal status to son so she can inherit her father's land and change their destiny. Set in Stone delves into the past to uncover a story which is just as relevant as today, the desire to forge your own path, while consistently having to resist a patriarchal fear of women's strength, and how ultimately love can help you choose your own truth. From Monaco is two plays by Armand Gatti, which is a play and fiction. These plays, two of the most notable by French/Monaco writer Armand Gatti, consider moments in time fraught with social and political meaning for all time. The first, concerning the aftermath of the Holocaust, questions truth, loyalty, and the future, as well as a host of other issues that surround and despair the emptiness of lost lives. The second centers on the trial of Sacco and Vanzetti, the Italian-American anarchists executed for murder and robbery in 1927. These plays, large in scope and thematic range, reveal, for the first time to the English-language audience, the powerful force of Gatti's drama. Another I think the last one, Montenegro, is Catherine the Great and Small by Olya Kinzevic, which is romance and literary fiction. Catherine's trajectory in life is accompanied by failures in love, family traumas, and an incredible romance with handsome Sinisa. The novel takes us through turbulent times in the Balkan region, from the 80s to the present day, portraying growing up in the twilight of communism and giving intimate insights to all that happened to the region after that. Carefully crafted characters and masterful dynamic storytelling place Catherine the Great and Small in the company of the very best novels, which speak about the reality of their geographic setting and are remembered for their convincing, strong, maladjusted characters. Catherine is certainly one of them, a powerful female voice seeking her place within her family among friends in the city she lives in and constructing her unique identity as a daughter, granddaughter, friend, mistress, wife, and mother. I really like hearing about feminism politics throughout all of the world and how that shapes one's view of the rest of the world and how the region that she lives in and the other political and social things happening in the region affect how one views feminism. So there is a lot of books such as that on this list, and if you are interested in the global concept of feminism, there are so many good books on this list, and I hope that if any of them sound interesting, you pick them up. I will say I did try to diversify a pretty good amount, so there was plenty that I didn't choose because I was like, oh, like this sounds like a different one on this list, But I'm telling you, like, there's so many good ones out there if you just look for them. There is also a site called Reading Women Around the World, I believe, that I will also link below if that is something that you are specifically interested in. So from the Netherlands is People with No Charisma by Chante Postuma, which is literary fiction. My Dutch friend said this was a good book that she's heard good things about. Though I don't think she's read it. I don't know. I have friends from all over the world. From the International Booker Prize, shortlisted author of What I'd Rather Not Think About comes a darkly humorous novel about multi-generational family dynamics and individuality in Dutch suburbia. An unnamed narrator grows up overshadowed by her unconventional mother, an ex-Jehovah's Witness and former television star with an inferiority complex. Her father is the head of a psychiatric institution whose only form of parenting is to offer his daughter the same life advice he dispenses to his patients. Reserved and somewhat aloof, he chooses not to intervene when his wife obsesses about charisma, calorie counting, and turning their daughter into a child prodigy. Their daughter strives to meet her mother's expectations and bond with her father while secretly worrying she lacks the driving charisma to do anything significant with her life. When her mother is diagnosed with terminal cancer, she begins to address their generational trauma, forge new relationship with her father, and discover life on her terms. In 12 chapters, each reflecting a different phase of life, Postuma expertly dissects a Fright family history, exposing the absurdity that often lies at the heart of life's most poignant and challenging moments. Next, from Norway, is A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen, which is music, film, fiction, and classics. I think I'm a human before anything else. I don't care what other people say. I don't care what people write in books. I need to think for myself. Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House premiered in 1879 in Copenhagen, the second in a series of realist plays by Ibsen, and immediately provoked controversy with its apparently feminist message and exposure of the hypocrisy of Victorian middle-aged class marriage. In Ibsen's play, Nora Helmer has secretly and deceptively borrowed a large sum of money to pay for her husband, Torvald, to recover from an illness on a sabbatical in Italy. Torvald's perception of Nora is of a silly, naive spendthrift, so it is only when the truth begins to emerge and Torvald appreciates the initiative behind his wife that unmendable cracks appear in their marriage. I've never heard of this book before, but I heard that it is pretty well known, so that was really interesting for me. Next is Poland, The Empusium by Olga Tokarczuk, which is historical fiction and horror. In September 1913, Mieklza, a student suffering from tuberculosis, arrives at Wilhelm Opte's guest house for gentlemen, a health resort in Gorbersdorf. I'm so sorry, guys. What is now Western Poland. Every day, its residents gather in the dining room to imbibe the hallucinogenic local liquor, to obsess over money and status, and to discuss the great issues of the day. Will there be war, monarchy, or democracy? Do devils exist? Are women inherently inferior? Meanwhile, disturbing things are beginning to happen in the guest house and its surroundings. As stories of shocking events in the surrounding highlands reach the men, a sense of dread builds. Someone, or something, seems to be watching them and attempting to infiltrate their world. Little does Mieklza realize, as he attempts to unravel both truths within himself and the mystery of the sinister forces beyond, that they have already chosen their next target. A century after the publication of The Magic Mountain, Tokarczuk revisits Thomas Mann territory and lays claim to it, blending horror story, comedy, folklore, and feminist parallel with brilliant storytelling. Next is Portugal, The Sibyl by Agostina Bessa Luiz, and the source from the summary is the modern novel. I could not find the summary on Goodreads, and unfortunately this book is not translated into English, so I will just be very impatiently waiting until that day comes. So, the novel tells the story of Quina, a Portuguese woman in a male-dominated society. Her father spends his money on women and gets involved in a bitter dispute over water rights, which he loses, dying soon after. Cost to the family means the loss of a dowry for the daughters, which Quina does not regret, though her sister does. Quina soon takes charge of the family farm, outmaneuvering her lazy brothers. Though she is close to her niece and adopts an orphan boy, she never marries and does not have children of her own, which she considers an ideal situation, as she tells her niece. Indeed, virtually the only happy women in this book are the unmarried ones, while the men come out badly. It is a first-class feminist novel which has been translated into several languages, but sadly not English. Fingers crossed, guys. So from Romania is The Hunger Angel by Herta Müller, which is historical fiction. It says, it was an icy morning in January 1945 when the patrol came for 17-year-old Leo Albrecht to deport him to the camp in Soviet Union. Leo would spend the next 5 years in a coke processing plant, shoveling coal, lugging bricks, mixing mortar, and battling the relentless calculus of hunger that governed the labor colony. 1 shovel load of coal is worth 1 gram of bread. In her new novel, Nobel laureate Herta Müller calls upon her unique combination of poetic intensity and dispassionate precision to conjure the distorted world of the labor camp in all its physical and moral absurdity. She has given Leo the language to express the inexpressible, as hunger sharpens his senses into an acuity that is both hallucinatory and profound. In scene after disoriented scene, the most ordinary objects acquire tender poignancy as they acquire a new purpose. A gramophone box serves as a suitcase, a handkerchief becomes a talisman, an enormous piece of casing pipe functions as a lover's trysting place. The heart is reduced to a pump, the breath mechanized into the rhythm of a swinging shovel. And coal, sand, and snow have a will of their own. Hunger becomes an insatiable angel who haunts the camp day and night, but also a bare-knuckled and sparring partner delivering blows that keep Leo feeling the rawest connection to life. Müller has distilled Leo's struggle into the world of breathtaking intensity that take us on a journey far beyond the gulag and into the depths of one man's soul. So I've not found anything for San Marino. If you know anything, please tell me. We'll go to Serbia next. Serbia has Iron Curtain, a love story by Vesna Goldsworthy, which is historical fiction and literary fiction. Milena Urbanska is a red princess living in a Soviet satellite state in the 1980s. She enjoys limitless luxury and limited freedom. The end of the Cold War seems unimaginable. When she meets Jason, a confident but politically naive British poet, they fall into bed together. Before long, Milena is planning her escape. She follows Jason to London, where she's shocked to find herself living in bohemian poverty. The rented apartment is dingy, the food disgusting, and Jason's family withholding. But at least there are no hidden cameras recording her every move. As she adjusts to her new life, however, Milena discovers the dark side of Jason's idea of freedom. With cool wit and tender precision, Vesna Goldsworthy delivers razor-sharp vision of 2 worlds of the brink of change amidst the failures of family and state. Iron Curtain is a sly, elegant comedy of manners that challenges the myths we tell ourselves. Next is Slovakia, book number 5 by Monika Kompenikova. Emotionally neglected by her immature and promiscuous mother and made to care for her cantankerous dying grandmother, 12-year-old Jarka is left to fend for herself in the social vacuum of a post-communist concrete apartment block jungle in Bratislava, Slovakia. She spends her days roaming the streets and daydreaming in the only place she feels a garden inherited from her grandfather. One day, on her way to the garden, she stops at a suburban railway station and impulsively abducts twin babies. Jarka teeters on the edge of disaster, and while struggling to care for the babies, she discovers herself. With a vivid and unapologetic eye, Monika Kompenikova captures the universal quest for genuine human relationships amid the emptiness and ache of post-communist Europe. Next is Slovenia, Yugoslavia, My Fatherland, Goran Vonvic, which is literary fiction. The story deals of the Borojevic family strings and juxtaposes images of the Balkans past and present, but mainly deals with the tragic fates of people who managed to avoid the bombs but were unable to escape the war. When Vladan Borojevic Googles the name of his father Nedeljko, a former officer in Yugoslav People's Army, supposedly killed in the civil war after the decay of Yugoslavia, he unexpectedly discovers a dark family secret, which recollects the events of 1991 when he first heard the military term deployment and his idyllic childhood came to a sudden end. I had a very hard time with that one, and I very much apologize. From Spain is A Heart So White by Javier Marias, which is literary fiction. Javier Marias' A Heart So White chronicles with unnerving insistence the relentless power of the past. Juan knows little of the interior life of his father Ranz, but when Juan marries, he begins to consider the past anew and begins to ponder what he really doesn't want to know. Secrecy, its possible convenience, its price, and even its civility hovers throughout the novel. Heart So White becomes a sort of anti-detective story of human nature. Intrigue, the sins of the father, the fraudulent and the genuine, marriage and strained repetitions of violence. Maria's elegantly sends shafts of inquisitory light into the shadows and onto the cost of ambivalence. Only 5 more! From Sweden is A Man Called Ove by Fredman Backman, which is contemporary fiction. Meet Ove. He's a curmudgeon, the kind of man who points at people he dislikes as if they were burglars caught outside his bedroom window. He has staunch principles, strict routines, and a short fuse. People call him the bitter neighbor from hell. But Ove must be bitter just because he doesn't walk around with a smile plastered to his face all the time? Behind the cranky exterior, there is a story and a sadness. So when one November morning, a chatty young couple with 2 chatty young daughters move in next door and accidentally flatten Ove's mailbox, it is the lead-in to a comical and heartwarming tale of unkept cats, unexpected friendship, and the ancient art of backing up a U-Haul, all of which will change one cranky old man and a local residents' association to their very foundations. From Switzerland is Sweet Days of Discipline by Fleur Jaeggi, and it is LGBTQ literary fiction. Set in post-war Switzerland, Fleur Jaeggi's eerily beautiful novel begins simply and innocently enough. At 14, I was a boarder in a school in the Appenzell. But there is nothing truly simple or innocent here. With the offhanded knowingness of a remorseless young Eve, the narrator describes life as a captive of the school and her designs to win the affections of the apparently perfect new girl, Friedrich. As she broods over her schemes as well as the nature of control and madness, the novel gathers a suspended, unsettling energy. Next is Ukraine, and it is once again one of the few non-fiction books. It is Voices from Chernobyl, the oral history of a nuclear disaster by Svetlana Alexievich, which is history. On April 26, 1986, the worst nuclear reactor accident in history occurred in Chernobyl and contaminated as much as 3/4 of Europe. Voices from Chernobyl is the first book to present personal accounts of the tragedy. Journalist Svetlana Alexievich interviewed hundreds of people affected by the meltdown, from innocent civilians to firefighters to those called in to clean up the disaster, and their stories reveal the fear, anger, and uncertainty to which they still live. Composed of the interviews in monologue form, Voices from Chernobyl is a crucially important work of immense force, unforgettable in its emotional power and honesty. Next is the United Kingdom, and of course I chose Pride and Prejudice, obviously! So let's read the summary. If you want a more detailed look at that, you can watch this wet rat badly talk about Pride and Prejudice. But for now, let's read the summary. Had I been in love, I could not have been more wretchedly blind. But vanity, not love, has been my folly. Pleased with the preference of one, and offended by the neglect of the other, on the very beginning of our acquaintance, I have courted prepossession and ignorance, and driven reason away, where either were concerned. Till this moment, I never knew myself. The quintessential British comedy of manners, pairing the bright, pretty, but prejudiced Elizabeth Bennet and the wealthy, handsome, but prideful Mr. Darcy. So good. And finally, we have Vatican City, Doctors of the Church by Pope Benedict XVI, which is nonfiction in history, mainly because I couldn't find any fiction from Vatican City, and this seemed really interesting to me. So, the last summary of the video. They are saints and teachers, monks, priests, bishops, and nuns. They faced opposition and exile. They lived in periods of confusion and conflict. Their teachings and insights not only brought peace and understanding to the church of their time, but continued to anchor the church of today. They brought clarity to the fragments and simplicity to the complex. They used speeches, documents, poems, and songs to reach the people of their time. Now, Pope Benedict XVI explores the lives and significance of 32 of the doctors of the church like no one else can. Taken directly from the Pope's addresses and his weekly audiences, Doctors of the Church is an incredible journey through the time to better understand these individuals who explored and explained the critical question of the church. Who is Christ? How do we know Christ? How do we act as Christ's disciples? And how are we in Christ? And with that, that is one book from almost every country in Europe. Based on the raw footage, I've been yapping for well over an hour, so I'm going to make this outro quick. I do really hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed doing the research for it and presenting all of that information to you. Once again, if you made it this far, please like the video, comment something down below that you enjoyed about this video, and if you want to see this series continue, please subscribe. I would so love to have you. But that is all from me right now. I am going to go eat lunch. So, without further ado, this has been Moo. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!